We're four friends who live across the globe
and share a love of Bon Appétit's YouTube channel.
So we came together to bring you our thoughts on what BA serves up.
And try our hands at recreating their dishes.
Welcome to Bon Appétit.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
Hi, I'm LJ. So Amanda, we've been left alone to do this episode of Bon Appétit.
We certainly have. Meg is currently on a plane.
I feel, she's stuck in Japan, lucky thing, because of the typhoon. She's all fine. She's not, unsafe in any way. She's perfectly safe. But it did mean that she couldn't fly home to record with us. She's had to stay in Japan a couple of extra days. So whilst that's good for her, it's less good for the podcast, but also fine because we're adults. We don't need supervision. Like, we can do this without other people.
We both have been in charge of other podcasts before.
Yeah, we're grown-ass
just not
women.
This one.
We don't need mom and dad looking after us. We're fine. So what have you been up to in the kitchen over the last few weeks, Amanda? Anything interesting, or have you been out to eat anywhere interesting? Has anyone cooked shit for you? Like, what's happening in the world of food?
I did some baking on Saturday. I can't give details yet because it's for an upcoming side dish. But it was an interesting experience because it was my first time cooking in the kitchen at my mom's house. Basically ever, because that wasn't really the kitchen we had when I lived here. So
it's like, I don't know, doing anything in someone else's space, everything feels a little off, right? You're like, things aren't where I would have put them. What's happening?
I did go out to eat right after our last recording with my best friend Jessica. We went to my favorite Indian restaurant, Ob, here in Columbus. There's a couple locations, and we went to the Bexley one, and it was just amazing. I got chicken tikka masala, and we got garlic naan, and it was so good.
Oh, that sounds so good. I have been enjoying making things with squash and pumpkin recently because 'tis the season and all of that. I made a really nice pumpkin curry with coconut milk last week. But it was I didn't realize until after I'd cooked the recipe, but it was vegan. So I could have, Justine could have eaten it. And I love when recipes are like that. You like the look of them. Maybe you find them online or in a recipe book or whatever, and you think, oh yeah, I'll cook that. And in the end, you're like, oh, this is vegan, or oh, this is vegetarian. Like, and without even trying, like, this is all I'm doing. Like, it feels good to be able to do that. And it was delicious. It was really creamy and it was a little spicy, but coconutty as well. So that was good. I'd recommend doing things with pumpkins this time of year because they're just so, other than carving them, but they are just so delicious this time of year. And I, like you, also made some things at the weekend that I can't talk about for this podcast, but you guys will be hearing all about that in due course.
Yes.
So on the menu for today's episode, we have Brad makes steak in eggs from the test kitchen. WWE superstar Braun Strowman tries to keep up with a professional chef in a back-to-back chef episode. Pastry chef attempts to make gourmet Sour Patch Kids. Gourmet makes. Brad makes fermented popcorn seasoning. It's alive. Christina makes Nasi Lemak at Kopitiam, which is from outside the test kitchen. Andy makes BA's best pesto from the test kitchen. And then we have something we're very excited about. What makes the perfect Thanksgiving meal? The launch of Making Perfect Thanksgiving, the second season. And then today they dropped Brad and Andy trying to make the perfect turkey and cranberry sauce, which is the first episode in that season of Making Perfect. So we get to talk about those. So we're very excited. But before we get into Making Perfect, let's get started with the other videos. So first up, Brad makes steak in eggs.
Which I know you were super skeptical about this, just from the title of it.
Yeah, I was like, in eggs? In eggs? What? I mean, I don't know about you, Amanda, but this, in my opinion, it's not a recipe, right? It's just something that Brad made up when he was hungover one day.
It is something that Brad just made up when he was hungover. And I was actually looking at the video earlier today. I was trying to cram and like do some research while I was at the doctor's office.
Yeah.
And I opened it up and there is no recipe for it.
Nope.
It just says a thing about like, it said something about like, Brad uses ground beef, not steak, but you can also use sausage or pork. And
Yeah.
that was it. Like
Yeah.
that was the whole recipe.
It was... So to me, it was really funny because it felt like Brad trying to be a fancy, like methodical chef, showing you one of those kinds of recipes, except not with a recipe,
Brad.
just with something that he just made up, because he was like, oh, what you need to do is you need to slice this. And I'm like, who slices like 2 tiny potatoes for a recipe? No one. This isn't a recipe. This is just a fun, like, you're so hungover you can't think what to do. This is what he's trying to do for it. But at the same time, I watched it with my husband, and he said he's trying to make it out that it's something that's good for a hangover. Like if you're really hungover and you don't want cereal, you don't want, you know, something that's too crazy, you do this. But he was like, it's not fancy enough to be like a bona fide BA recipe. But it's also, he was like, I don't know about you, but it's far too fancy for someone with a hangover to do, right? Like when you've got a hangover, you don't want to be like making a crepe in a pan and like making your own hamburger and like slicing potatoes. I mean, maybe that's just me.
No. I mean, okay, we all know I'm the novice cook in this group. There's no way in hell when I'm hungover I'm making any sort of food like that. I'm like lucky if I can keep down a granola bar. And then like eventually by the end of the day, I'm like, French fries sound good.
Yeah.
Because it'll just like hang in my stomach for
like
a little while.
A frozen pizza or something, just like that you just shove in the oven. Exactly. Nobody's making this egg hot pocket.
No. I feel like this is... Brad wanted it to just be called poor man's steak and eggs, but I think they said, no, we're not going to call it that. And I think really what he wanted to call it was like hangover food, but they weren't going to let him title it that either.
I mean, I would eat it if someone made it for me.
Those potatoes looked really good to me. I'm like, can we just get rid of the eggs and the meat and just potatoes for hangover? That's all I want.
And that side salad. I was like, no. You've made that so it doesn't just look like egg on a plate, so that there's some brightness to that plate. Nobody's serving this with a side salad. So funny. Also, the other bad thing about this video is we got Adam at the end being Adam.
Oh my God. I think I messaged you guys, like, because I was like the first one to watch that one, and I was just like, oh, Adam's here.
Yeah.
Because he's doing his thing that Meg always says, where like, he's trying to be funny, but instead he just comes off as an asshole.
He does come off as an asshole, and I don't think he actually means to be an asshole. I mean, I wonder how much of all of this feedback, because people say that on YouTube all the time. They're like, he's the, you know, they hate when he comes on the screen. He's like the bad guy of the test kitchen. But do you think he reads that feedback? Do you think he's like, oh, I'm going to lean into it because that's the role that I'm playing, and I'm like we would call it the pantomime villain in the UK. Like everyone like boos when he comes on because they like it. Or do you think he's just immune to it and he's just likes being on camera?
That's a really good question, because he's editor-in-chief of Bon Appétit. So like not just digital, not just he's the editor in chief of the whole thing. And I could see it go either way, that he's very aware of that and is just like, fine, that's what I'm leaning into.
Yeah.
Or he's entirely unaware. Like, I feel like it's not anywhere in between.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it's one extreme or the other. Like, he's just beyond it all and he's just being Adam.
Yeah. Yeah. And he doesn't care, like, what people think. I do listen to the BA Foodcast. I've mentioned it a couple of times on this podcast, and I do like it, but he hosts that, and I do find him irritating on that as well. Just the way he talks over people and, like, talks like he's also a super expert chef when actually he isn't. I don't, as far as I'm aware, like he employs people to do that, which is fine. Like he works in magazines, he's good at publishing, that's his job. But like, then don't claim to be like this expert food person when you've got actual experts there.
Yeah, and that's, I'll be honest, why I have not listened to that podcast yet, because every review that I've seen, or I don't know, feedback that I've seen about it, whether it's like from you or a stranger, has been Adam talks over people. I'm not a fan of him.
Yeah, I like listening to it though, because even though he does that, like you do get the other chefs on there, and I like listening to them, so it's fine. But yeah, he is irritating. Brad was a delight throughout this video. It was just funny that they thought, I wonder how, do you think Brad pitched this video and was like, no, I really want to do a video on this recipe, I think it's great? Or do you think they were like, Brad, everyone else has done a video lately, you need to do one that's not It's Alive? And he was like,
yeah, I wonder. I don't know. I don't know if this was like him pushing it, or they were just like, we need content and you're here and have these things.
And he was like, okay, I guess I'll pull this out of my ass because I made it the other week when I was hungover.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, Brad, what are we going to do with him? From Brad to Braun, we have a back-to-back chef. We got all the hits in this episode
really did,
of our podcast, haven't we? We got everything. So this was a back-to-back chef episode with WWE wrestler Braun Strowman. Now, I've never heard of him before, but I have recently found a newfound appreciation for wrestling that I never had before, so I was quite interested to hear from Braun. I thought he seemed like a really sweet guy. I really enjoyed him on this episode.
Yeah, I also had never heard of him before because I do not follow wrestling, but I thought he seemed to work really well with Carla.
Yeah.
And he won me over when he was like, oh no, you should just listen to women and you're gonna
my god,
by in life. Yeah, that was the best
That
part.
was my favourite bit, and then Carla was like, I knew you were smart. I love that. I find that there's nothing greater in the world than a man who's been raised predominantly by women, because they just tend to be the best men generally, in my opinion. But that was like my comment when he said that was that I wrote down in my notes was, I love this man. Like I was just like, you sir are a wonderful specimen of a human being. And he was just so great. He was really listening to Carla, all the way through. He was really trying to pay attention and like check his understanding when she said stuff. And for the most part, he got things pretty spot on, apart from that he cut his pickle in the wrong way in half. But Carla didn't specify, to be fair to him, which way.
She just said in half. Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter. And even at the end, he was like cleaning his board down, and I was just like, oh, you are the sweetest. I loved him. It was really cute.
What did you think about like the recipe that they made? Because I mean, I don't do seafood, but I'm assuming you prefer lobster to me.
I love lobster rolls. They're one of my favorite seafood dishes, and definitely my preferred. Well, I will eat a lobster, like a whole lobster, and eat it out of its shell, and I do love it like that too. But there's something about a lobster roll, just the sauce that you mix it with, like the mayonnaise-y creamy sauce, and then the nice bread. Like, it's just delicious. Oh, I fucking love lobster.
I thought it was interesting that they like made the mayonnaise.
Did you know that was how you make mayonnaise?
I knew it was eggs and oil. Like, I was aware, but I've never actually seen it made before.
When I do it, I don't do it very often. I have a friend that only makes mayonnaise because she's just like, it's nicer. But when I have done it, I tend to do it in my food processor and just like drizzle the oil in, so you're not having to like whisk it by hand. It's a lot easier. But same thing. And it does taste nicer, I think. One thing that I've never seen before is how you cook lobster, like obviously from the live lobster. Quite often when I've seen recipes from lobster roll, it's from lobster that has already been bought, like cooked, and you like take the cooked lobster meat and then make the roll from that. I didn't know. I've never been shown or seen how you cook a lobster from an alive lobster. Yeah. That would have freaked me out a little bit, even though I know that's how lobsters get cooked. There is something about being like, oh, hi mate, see you later, in the pot you go. Like, that's a bit like, oh god, I'm an awful human. But yeah.
Are you like picturing like the chef in The Little Mermaid?
Yes.
Like,
very much so.
So the sweet little succulent crab.
Yeah, it's gonna be hot in my big silver pot. That's probably what I would do if I was gonna cook a lobster, sing that song to them. I was very impressed that Braun was able to crack a lobster with his bare hands.
Right? He's just gonna do that by himself.
But like, it always, I have to like really, like, it takes all my strength to do it with the tool. So to just do it like with your hands, it's I mean, I don't know why I'm surprised. He's a wrestler, so he's obviously strong. But yeah, he kind of reminded me of have you seen Moana?
Did he remind you of Maui?
Yeah, I mean, I know Maui's voiced by The Rock, right? So it would make sense that a wrestler also has a similar physique. Yeah, I was like, when he was standing, like, literally back to back with Carla and the height difference, I was like, it's like she's Moana and he's Maui. So funny. And I was like, I really wanted him to turn around at the end with his dish and be like, you're welcome. Next in our greatest hits tour of the Bon Appétit YouTube channel, we have Pastry Chef Attempts Gourmet Sour Patch Kids. So we don't have these in the UK.
Okay, that was going to be my first question is, have you ever had a Sour Patch Kid?
I've never had one. Not because I've not seen them. When I was in the US and living there, I saw them. But first off, I don't like gummy, like, candies. And I also don't like sour candies. So this product is not for me. But I do know that there is a huge proportion of the population that love sour gummy candies. So I understand why they're popular.
I actually am not really a fan of Sour Patch Kids. I don't like sour candies, if that makes sense. Like, I'm fine with sour foods. Like, when Carla was talking about her son Cosmo and how he loves lemons and limes, I'm like, well, yeah. Because those are real fruit. Like, I love lemons and I love lime. And anybody who listened to the Boozy Ice Pops episode I did, I was like, well, I've got extra lime. I guess it's going in. And like, but sour candy where it's just like, we're making it sour to be sour just so it can be.
Just to blow your mouth out.
It's never really been my thing. Because I feel like the whole point is just to make you pucker and make a weird face.
Yeah, make your face like zoom in on itself. What was it he said at the end? He was like, nothing is too sour.
Yeah, can we talk about how Cosmo was the best part of this whole video?
Cosmo is so cute. I love that Carla brought him to work with her, because she didn't have childcare and he was not at camp anymore and it was the holidays. But also the fact that Claire was like, oh my god, we're gonna make them into the Cosmo shape, and like took his picture and whatever. And then not only it graduated from him helping in terms of creating the shape, but also for him being like the expert on the taste profile.
Sour.
Like, if he likes it, then it's a success. Like that, he was like the arbiter of like this challenge. Like, he's the one that's gonna call when it's good enough. I thought that was
Cosmo
great.
approved.
Yeah.
I was really happy that, well, first, you could tell even before they showed him on the video that when Claire was explaining part of it, that she was explaining it not just for us, but for him too.
Yes.
Like, I feel like she was trying to explain to him what she was doing.
Yes.
And I like that she let him, like, do the juicer thing with her. Yeah. I thought that was awesome.
That was cool.
And then, you know, obviously he wasn't there for the whole video because he had to go home. And
I think
Carla
they should have brought him back, like, at the end to be like, yes, correct. I know they did that little clip at the end, but it would have been nice for him to come back with Claire.
I was like, we're not going to find out. And then as soon as it, like, you know, the cut to black and then it popped back up with him, I was like, yay, Cosmo! And my sister was watching with me at that moment, my sister Faith, and she was like, oh yeah, that kid's Keegan, our oldest nephew, because like he also loves super sour stuff.
That's cute. So yeah, it was nice. It was like, bring your kid to work day.
I definitely liked this episode of Gourmet Makes, like, as an episode of Gourmet Makes. I feel like there were a lot of like kind of greatest hits of Claire going on. We got the sad music and all of that. I know Justine had written to us in our Bon Appétit Slack that she felt like this one was like a little samey, and I can see that. Like she did use some like past techniques and ideas and stuff, but compared to the Hot Pockets, where I got frustrated that something wasn't working and she like refused to change her technique.
Right.
In this one, it wasn't working doing like all the blanching of the fruit and all of that. And so she's like, it's frustrating because I spent 3 days doing this, but it's not working. So I need to try a new technique. So I appreciated that she actually did go, all right, I have to go back now, instead of just like really leaning into something that wasn't working, which I feel like she did with both M&Ms and Hot Pockets.
Exactly. I was going to say exactly that. I think I actually really enjoyed this episode of Gourmet Makes when you compare it to those more recent ones, because it felt like the first time she's actually really struggled for the first time in ages. Like it really felt like it was the first time in a long time where she's tried something and it just did not work at all. Because like the stuff that she tried in M&M's and the Hot Pockets episode, although they weren't perfect, they were kind of good enough, and she just kind of was like, I'm just going to go with this. Whereas this, she couldn't do that in this one. She actually had to go back to the drawing board on day 3. You know, when I watched M&M's, when I watched Hot Pockets, I was kind of like, well, it seems like Claire's kind of learned all her lessons for any future episodes, because she's now basically going straight to good enough on day 1 almost, and then she's like slightly tweaking things and then being like, I can't be bothered anymore, this will do. But that didn't happen at all on this one, and I actually really enjoyed watching that, because you know, I like to see her overcome adversity. That's like the best bit about Gourmet Makes to me. Like there was one bit where she was really struggling in this episode of Gourmet Makes, and she was just like going, I don't understand what the point of showing this is, like cut this out, like this is, you know, just edit this out. And I was like, no, this is the bits that people want to see, because they want to see you come up the other side and like win. I was chatting with Justine about this as well, and I was saying all of this to her, and she was like, I don't know what the future of Gourmet Makes is, because at some point she's going to have learned enough where it's going to be like pretty much done on day 1 and it's just tweaking. So, you know, are they going to keep doing it even though that's the case? I don't know.
I mean, she got like Pocky.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed that video. And I think part of it, compared to the last couple that we've discussed, is that I'm happy when she succeeds. Like even going back to Oreos, gourmet Oreos, like long before we started the podcast. Like it's great.
Yeah.
It's just the ones where she gives up on trying. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. Because it's frustrating, because I feel like if she did try, we know she'd figure it out eventually. Emil came in and gave her a pep talk, and she got to do a little crossover with however many ways to cook a steak.
I loved that so much. I liked that when they were swapping out, he even like put his wedding ring and stuff on her.
Yeah.
Like he put like, it wasn't just his watch. It was like his wedding ring, everything. His other ring, and everything. So
it was so funny.
I did like seeing the behind the scenes of the different setup for how they film those Emil ones too.
Yeah, it's a completely different, it's like a set as opposed to the working kitchen, right?
I mean, obviously it has to be a working kitchen also, but not in the way the test kitchen is.
No, I get the vibe that the test kitchen is like, that's where they're working even if they didn't film stuff, right? Whereas the sort of set kitchen is, I guess, for certain shoots for the magazine and stuff like that, when you when you want it to look like a home kitchen. Yeah. But back to Sour Patch Kids. What did you think of the final result that she produced?
I honestly feel like she did the best that she could, and especially because it didn't seem like she was ready to give up. It seemed like from a production end, they
had no more
told
time.
her like, yeah, your time's up on this. You can't do more.
I think they looked right. I thought it was amazing, like, what food coloring and sugar can do, right? Because, like, before you add that, it just looks like, what did she say? Like, split pea soup at one point. Like, it just looks disgusting. And then when you put the food coloring in, it's suddenly like, oh, yeah, I'll put that in my mouth. That's fine. I thought hers looked like little kids because she used the little tiny person cookie cutter. But the original Sour Patch Kids, their shape don't look like humans. They look like Groot from Guardians of the Galaxy.
I should have asked you, have you ever seen a Sour Patch Kids commercial?
No, I haven't.
So it's like those little things where they have like the fringe on top, like, you know, weird hair, and
Yeah.
and it shows them, and they're like, they walk out and they're all like stiff and robot-y, and then they like do something horrible, like they trip someone or like push them over or something, and he goes, first they're sour, then they're sweet, and then they like hand someone a cookie or a flower or something like that.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. No, I didn't know that. I didn't realize they were like a character. I just thought that was just the name. Oh wow. It's, you know, every day's a school day. Next, we had Brad with an It's Alive video. Brad making fermented popcorn seasoning.
This video was such a delight.
Yeah, I fucking love popcorn as well. This is all my favorite foods have happened this couple of weeks.
I really enjoyed this one. I liked that it was sort of like Brad's greatest hits of fermentation and then like a new twist on it.
Yeah, with his new dehydrator. We also got Matty again in this video.
Yes.
And a noodling flashback, which was delightful.
Oh, so wonderful. I was literally thinking, man, Maddie and Brad should just have their own show.
Yeah.
And then Brad's like, Maddie and I should have our own show.
Exactly. I really want a full-time show for them with Matty. It was just so funny. They were like, so you just want it to be like It's Alive going places? And he was like, yeah, but with Matty. So funny. We also got a sneak preview of what Claire's making in a future Gourmet makes as well, the Mentos.
It really felt like everybody was in this video with Brad in the best way. Like you had Delaney and
you had everyone.
You had Claire, and yeah, it was so much fun.
And Molly. Was Molly there? Molly was there at one point as well, wasn't she?
She tried the popcorn. Chris loved the popcorn even more than mustard.
Yes, even more than mustard, and that's saying something. The idea of dehydrating umami-flavoured fermented food into powder and then putting it on popcorn is absolute genius. I mean, Brad jokes about all of his, like, money-making ideas, but I genuinely think this is something... I've not seen it done, but it wouldn't be a stretch to like create like this gourmet popcorn brand with these like really cool umami type flavors on. Like he could definitely do that. But like I think he knew that as well because he was like, I'm giving this away. I shouldn't be giving this away.
Yeah, there's a place here in Columbus that does gourmet popcorn and
Yes.
all different kinds of flavors. And I know they have some that are savory. And now I'm going to have to like go and check and see if they have anything like this
No, but
coming up.
all you really need is a dehydrator, right? How much are dehydrators? I've never really looked into it. It seems like once you put them in the dehydrator, it's pretty simple. You just dehydrate them and then just grind them up and put them with some salt. Like, job done.
Yeah. I also thought he was going to do like 4 different flavors of popcorn.
Right,
And-
not mix them. Yeah.
Mix it. Because my sister Faith had been watching that episode with me. And then she stepped outside for a few minutes and then came back. And she's like, well, which flavor popcorn did he do? And I was like, it's all the flavors.
It's like a mega mix.
Yeah.
Like Delaney's ooh. You know, he did the remix of all his like reactions. I was like, I wanted that as a ringtone. It was so funny with the like pounding music behind it where he's like, ooh, ooh, ooh.
Oh, Hunzi was on it with the editing for
so
this
good.
episode.
Yeah.
It was so wonderful. I think Justine would have appreciated everything in this one.
I loved it. I thought it was brilliant.
I thought it was really funny when he was like, I know you all think I'm on speed, but
We're like, yes.
yes, we do. And he's like, but I'm on a time crunch. And we're like, oh, okay, Brad, we trust you.
I love how much he makes himself laugh. It's one of those traits that really reminds me of me because he'll just say little jokes and even if no one else laughs at him, he'll be like, like Dr. Hibbert from The Simpsons. The other thing that was funny about this video was I really laughed when he was going to do the stovetop popcorn, but they ran out of time. So he was like, oh, I'm going to use a microwave instead. And he had no clue how to use the microwave.
Yeah, when and then he said the thing about, like, I don't understand why people keep saying powder is a bad word to say. Okay, did you understand the reference of Delaney as a DARE representative?
Oh, yeah, because it's drugs, right? That's what they say. What does it stand for? It stands for something, doesn't it?
Drug Abuse Resistance Education.
Yes, we had that. But yeah, I understood.
Yeah.
I got that because that made me laugh a lot.
I loved that. Like, he just keeps going, do you want some powders, Delaney? And I'm like, Brad, I love you, but this is the worst way.
It's just the way he was like, what? What's the problem? Why is everyone weird when I say powder?
It's like, first of all, he's also not saying, do you want to try some edible powder? It's just like, want to try some powder? This week on It's Alive, Brad is a pusher.
Yeah, exactly. You know, like when you have like a bumbling relative that just goes around saying things that they just don't get why everyone's just staring at them. They're like, what? Like, he keeps doing it. It's really funny.
Yeah.
Next, we have Christina making Nasi Lemak at Kopitiam, which is a new series, ? Or a special one-off episode. It's from outside the test kitchen. But I really enjoyed this video. Christina went to visit one of the Hot 10 restaurants in New York from this year's Hot 10 feature that they do every year in the magazine and made one of their dishes.
As far as, like, the format of this episode, it reminded me of Andy Learns How to Make Szechuan Food, and like a mix between that and they used to in the older like BA videos, because I am continuing my sojourn back in time and like watching forward.
Yeah.
The ones that I skip over, sorry, are the ones where it's like, here's how this restaurant makes this food. So I feel like they're trying to combine that idea that they used to have of like featuring restaurants, particularly when it's like the best 10 restaurants in the country.
Yeah.
At the same time, incorporating that test kitchen part into it.
Yeah.
Because that's what people want to see are the test kitchen personalities.
Yeah. I mean, I really like, whether it's a one-off episode or whether it's the start of like a new type of video series, I really like the premise of it. I mean, restaurant recommendations are something I really enjoy getting and receiving and researching. So I loved that this was a video that focused on a particular restaurant that if I was in New York, I would definitely go and seek it out. And I loved that she kind of met the owners, talked to them, like went behind the scenes, like asked them questions about how they make their dish, like why they make it like that. I just loved it. I just loved the whole idea, like finding out from these independent restaurants why they do what they do, what they're passionate about. It was just great. I just really enjoyed it.
Christina in this setting too. Like if this ended up being like Christina's thing, because I feel like she asked good questions.
Yeah,
and
I thought she did.
She had a good rapport with the chef and the general manager. Like, you know, when she was asking about the rice, like making the rice, and do you measure out the water or do you do it somewhere on your hand?
Yeah.
Or do you know, those sorts of questions. And I don't know. If this ends up becoming a series, I hope it's something that like Christina gets to continue with, because I like her a lot and I would like to see her more.
I agree. I totally agree. I really like Christina. And I think it helped that this cuisine was one that she was very, very familiar with, because obviously she's from a similar heritage. So she could ask those questions about the rice because she's like, oh, when I was little, I was told to do this, you know. So I think that was nice because she was bringing her expertise and like background to that conversation as well. And they could like bond over that, which I really enjoyed listening to. And, you know, when she says things like, oh, here comes the rice facial, do you know what I mean? Like, you could tell that was a joke she'd been making for years, because she's been cooking rice like this for years, you know. I know in restaurants they do the whole pack something into a bowl and then tip it onto a plate so it looks like nice and compact and tidy on your plate. But I'm like, I could do that at home if I was having a dinner party or something. I wouldn't do it just for me, but like if I was having a dinner party, but I never think to do that. So like little plating tricks like that restaurants use, I thought that was really handy.
I like that was the part that Christina was most nervous about, was like making sure it was like packed into the bowl and then like flipped over correctly.
Yeah,
I thought that was cute.
It was good. I liked it. I also really enjoyed Christina at the end when she made the argument for why she doesn't use chopsticks. Because she was like, I use a spoon because otherwise I can't get as much of it in my face as possible.
I definitely, like, chopsticks, I'm fine if I'm like picking up chicken or beef or something. But yeah, when it comes to the rice, like I know it's more traditional to use chopsticks, but really I want to use a fork so I can get as much rice as possible because as we have discussed, I love rice.
I love rice too. Although I do actually like using chopsticks when they're available because I would just eat too much. So it's kind of a good excuse for me to be like, no, I'm going to take my time. I'm going to eat it with the chopsticks and then I don't eat as much. Do you think fermented shrimp paste is a future It's Alive topic in the making?
Oh, that's a good question. Possibly.
Next, we have Andy makes BA's best pesto, or the pesto.
The pesto.
Another pesto video.
Yes. Well, this is technically the first pesto one we've talked about in a recap. But of course, Justine has made Carla's white pesto pasta, veganized.
This is obviously a Genovese, a green pesto that Andy's developed a BA's best recipe for. But it was interesting. I don't know about you. I thought it was interesting that he showed the two ways, but one of the ways he had literally never done it that way before until he did it on the video.
I feel like that's just because Andy loves mortar and pestles.
He
also, have we discussed, is it pestle or pestle, and does it matter?
It's pestle. I don't know if it matters, but yeah, one of them, the pestle's the bowl, and then the mortar's the stick,
smashy bit.
Yeah. I never really learned how to use a pestle and mortar properly until I went on a cooking course on my honeymoon in Thailand, where they use it to make all their like green, red Thai curry pastes. So we learned how to make a green Thai curry paste from scratch from all the ingredients. I always thought it was kind of like a, I don't know, like circular motion and you just sort of ground it on, but actually I was taught that it's more like a smashing motion and you put your hand over the bowl so that things don't just spatter everywhere and you just kind of really go for it, and that's the quickest way of getting it, whatever you're grinding, come together in a paste. And it also, that was where I was taught that you need to have something for it to kind of rub against and be abrasive with, which is why a lot of things that use a pestle and mortar recipe, they tell you to put your ingredient in with salt initially, because then it's got the salt to kind of rub against and break down. But it does take a long time to get something from raw ingredients to a smooth kind of paste like substance in a pestle and mortar. So when he just did the food processor method, I was just a bit like, I'm sure they both taste delicious, which is basically what he said at the end, but I was like, why would you bother going to the trouble if you've got a food processor?
I think it's just because he really likes mortar and pestles. Like,
in
some
rustic.
of the older videos I've watched, he straight up will talk about how great it is. Like, I've seen several where it's him just playing around with one essentially and showing something you can crush with it. So I feel like he just wanted to try it and kind of show off his skills, but then it ended up being maybe harder than he was expecting. And you, like, even Chris was like, why are you using a food processor? I thought you were against food processors.
Yeah.
So I thought it was very big of Andy to admit at the end that people should still use a food processor for the recipe.
I mean, it certainly looked better when you did the side by side, right? The food processor was super green. When you're bashing it, you're bruising those basil leaves so they go black, right? Whereas I know the food processor is a lot of friction on them, but it's for less time, I think. So that must be how they retain their kind of green colour, right?
Yeah. It reminded me of two things we've talked about before. Like you said, the bruising, where Carla said, like, don't make your herbs go black.
Don't
that's too
pound them. Yeah, with your knife.
Yeah, like that's too bruised. And then also, but it reminded me of the pozole episode. You made, but the way, like, to make it greener, you run it in the food processor really quickly.
Yeah,
towards the end, because it's not as bruised and it looks fresher and greener. And
that was the with the pozole, that was coriander or cilantro.
Okay,
so that was a different herb, but yeah, I guess the same principle. You're right. It's doing it in the food processor retains its color much more clearly than just pounding it for hours in the pestle and mortar. So, I mean, this recipe looked pretty delicious to me. I mean, you can't really go wrong with pesto and pasta as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was nice to see two ways to do it. It was good to see, like, Andy try something and evaluate how well or how not well it went. Like, I enjoyed seeing that learning process as well. But it was kind of a simple recipe, but I enjoyed seeing what his take on a best pesto would be.
Yeah. Hey, I need more simple recipes in my life.
You should try this one. I think you could do this one, especially in the food processor.
My favorite funny moment in this one was Andy's inability to figure out spaghetti.
Yeah. I was like, what is he doing with this spaghetti? Like, how is this hard?
No.
It was like he took it out and then it was back. I mean, I know it was like edited and cut like out of order or whatever, but I was like, first it was out of the bag, then it was back in, then it was half in, half out, and then I was like, what is so hard? And then he was like, this is why I don't cook spaghetti.
It's not that hard.
In contrast, he makes it look so easy when it's cooked and he's like picking it up out of the pasta water with his tongs and just shoving it in the bowl. When I tried to do that, when I made his bolognese recipe, they're so slippery. Like, maybe he just has really strong tongs or a stronger grip than I do, but I tried with my kitchen tongs and they just fall straight out. Like, I couldn't grip them properly. So it took me ages to kind of tong them out of the water, and he just did it in like one go. So strange.
Maybe it's something he learned by working in a kitchen? I don't know.
Possibly. I think he's just got better tongs than I have. That's my theory.
Probably in the BA test kitchen. They've got the best.
Okay, so let's be real. We're all just here for the next couple of videos, aren't we?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It's the Making Perfect Thanksgiving season. It is here. We are ready. Our bodies are ready. We're ready to receive all of this content. It looks like the whole season is available on various different platforms right now, right? Like Apple TV or somewhere else. Roku, yeah, I can't remember all the logos they flash at the end of each video. Because
nothing that I have.
Well, actually, I think we do have Apple TV, even though we don't use it. But I figure, I mean, I'm in no hurry. I'm quite happy to wait for them to come out on YouTube and to like savor them, you know? I don't want to binge this. I want to savor it in the lead up to Thanksgiving. So I'm quite happy to discuss them, you know, bit by bit with you guys. So first of all, I want to say that I feel like we called this ages ago when we were trying to speculate on what the next Making Perfect series would be. We came up with a bunch of ideas in our little group chat, didn't we? And I think Thanksgiving was definitely one of them, especially when we saw them posting all of those pictures on Instagram over the summer of them in that house. And then someone, I think at one point we thought it might be burgers.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember who, but yeah, we were speculating
like different
burgers.
Types of burger or things in buns. But then I can't remember who it was that said it first, but one of us certainly said, I think it might be Thanksgiving. And I'm so excited. Like, I'm really excited.
Yeah. One of the things that I was excited about in this prologue was to see that they've added Rick and Christina.
Totally.
To the group. That will be fun and an ad for different dynamics. Because especially the pairing of Chris and Rick.
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that.
I think Rick can hold his own against Chris. What do you feel about the different pairings that we've got for the different topics?
We're going to have Brad and Andy doing turkey and cranberry sauce in a few minutes that we'll discuss.
Well, because they were paired together on sauce, right, in the pizza series.
Yes.
And I really like their combination in that season of Making Perfect. So I'm excited that they're together again. I thought they worked really well.
Then it's Molly and Carla again paired together.
And they're doing potatoes and gravy, essential components of a Thanksgiving dinner, of course.
Yes.
And then, as you say, we've got Chris and Rick, and they're doing stuffing. So that'll be interesting. And then we have Claire and Christina, and they're doing the sides.
I'm looking forward to that because the first time I saw Christina was in Gourmet Makes, and I love whenever she pops up in Gourmet Makes with Claire. I'm just kind of interested to see what they're going to say are sides, because, like, there are infinite different sides you can have at Thanksgiving, because you can have, like, corn or green beans or any kind of casserole. Like, there's just... Yeah.
So much. And for me, Thanksgiving is almost like the turkey's important for sure. And I haven't been doing Thanksgiving as long as you guys because I'm not natively like from America. Right. But I have been doing it for the last 10 years. So I feel like I've done it enough times now to know what I like and to like feel like it's not Thanksgiving without ... You know what I mean? So I feel like obviously you have to have the turkey. But for me, the stars of the show are like all the other stuff around it. So they have to get those sides right for it to be the perfect Thanksgiving meal, in my opinion. So I'm curious. I'm a bit skeptical as to whether they'll pull that off. And then bringing up the rear, we have the Magic Dream Team, Claire and Brad, doing pies.
Which we know will be magical and hopefully an hour and a half long.
I hope they split it into like 5 parts. Just the pies. I loved seeing all the vintage Bon Appetit magazines that they brought out, which showed all, like, over the years,
the one
different
from
features they've done. How funny. So funny. Like, how, like, aesthetics have changed in, like, food styling and what people thought looked good back then. So, shall we start then talking about Brad and Andy trying to make the perfect turkey and cranberry sauce?
Yes, definitely. Let's do it.
Brad and Andy. 1-2 punch. Great. So it was an hour long. First of all.
This might be controversial. I don't feel like they gave enough time to the cranberries.
Ooh, that's interesting. I've got thoughts on the cranberry element, but shall we talk about turkey first and then talk about the cranberries, like what they did with the cranberry sauce?
Sure.
Yeah. First of all, they figured out what type of turkey they were going to go for, which I really liked that they did that step. I've always been of the opinion, and I was kind of brought up with, you should buy the best quality meat that you can afford, right? The cheaper quality meat means that it's not well looked after. It often got stuff in it that's not good for you. Then you want to buy a good bird because it's just better. And I think, like, when you see that cheap kind of farm raised, like fed full of hormones bird on the one side and then the free range next to it, they're just they almost look like completely different animals. Like the one on the cheaper one just looks so sad, and I just think some people miss that. They don't see that side by side comparison when you're in a store, and you just think, oh, how bad can it really be? I'm sure it's fine, and just put it in the carton and buy it.
I'll be honest, I was just thinking, oh God, how many years of bad turkeys have I been eating?
It's
sad. Thought about that.
But what I thought was interesting, even after they did that comparison, they didn't think that the most expensive bird, the heritage bird, was the best option. They were saying the jump in price from the free range to the heritage was much bigger than the jump from the conventional turkey to the free range. Yeah, the
conventional to free range was only like a $3 a pound difference. From the minute like they showed that one and then they were talking about how it had been aged, I was like, that's gonna be a gamey bird.
Yeah,
Brad is gonna like it.
Yeah,
and Andy's not, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and then they did the discussion around what type of brine to do, wet or dry, right?
Yes. And they talked to the food scientist again.
They talked to the food scientist who said one of my favorite lines. I don't know if she meant it to rhyme, but she said, drier meats like the breast, that's when brine works the best. And I was like, has she got that embroidered on a pillow or something? Or like in a greetings card. Is that like on the back of her business card? I've always done a wet brine is because I don't have a huge fridge, and a lot of people who live in apartments don't have massive refrigerators. Right. So what I like about a wet brine is that usually it's cold enough that I can put it in its wet brine in like a plastic box or something and just put it on my balcony or outside. So I like it for practicality reasons.
So one of the things that I thought was interesting that I would not have thought was that the dry brine made a juicier, more moist bird than the wet brine, because I would have just assumed you're going to get more juicy. Yeah. But apparently that wasn't the case, and that surprised me. Also, I should say I have never cooked a turkey myself.
Okay.
I do wonder if it depends on the kind of wet brine you're using. You know, they didn't really experiment with different wet brines. They just did the one, and then they liked the dry brine.
They were
better,
like,
so
no.
they went the dry brine.
Yeah.
What did you think about, once they settled on dry brine, the different ones that they tried? Like all the different variations.
Yeah, I loved the names that they gave them.
Paul. Paul.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also loved when they were like, oh, guess what color it is? Beige. Oh, well, we're calling this one The Gap, which I thought was hilarious. So I thought they chose a good range of flavor profiles to try out. So there was like your traditional one, which was the Emerald Lagasse. And then they had like The Gap, which was really basic. It was just kind of like onion, garlic, salt, sugar. That was their beige
paprika
one. Yeah, paprika. Yeah, that was the other one. The hot one. Yeah, the heat wave. That was it. Heat wave.
The heat wave.
Yeah, I thought it was so funny when Andy was like, I would not have put the turmeric in with the salt. Well, now it's going to be awful and ruined, and it was fine, but yeah.
Yeah, but that was also the one that they were like, this dark meat tastes weird. Like, neither one of them liked the dark meat on that one.
Yeah, and then the fourth one, Paul, which is the one that they did a basic dry brine on, but then they added the flavor with the gochujang instead of butter, or with the butter, right?
With the butter.
And I kind of knew what was going to happen there. I was kind of surprised they didn't spot it sooner, because I was like, that's going to have a lot of sugar in it. Like, surely that's just going to burn in the oven.
See, this is why you know things, because I was just like, the whole time I'm sitting there like, man, I really need to try this gochujang. Like, it sounds like something I would love. I love spicy stuff. It's Asian. Yeah. I need to get this. I'm like, oh man, I'm going to have to tell my brother he should do this for the turkey this year. And then that happened, and I was like, I think that makes sense.
I think you could use it on turkey, but you just couldn't be basting in it. I wasn't surprised that the Gap won the day when it came down to it, because I just thought that seemed to me like, when they listed all the flavors, they were like really surprised because it was so basic. But I was like, if you think about those flavors, they're the ones that you want out of a turkey, right? You want the onion, you want the garlic, you want a little bit of heat from the paprika. That's what a Thanksgiving turkey is to me, really. And then you just add some extra flavor with your whatever basting liquid you're going to use.
Now, between this and the deep fried turkey in Gilmore Girls Thanksgiving episode, I really, really want to try a deep fried turkey. I've never tried it.
Me too. Russ is desperate to deep fry a turkey, but we've got a balcony. We don't have a backyard. Did you see how much oil you need to deep fry a turkey?
Oh, yeah.
I was like, that is a lot of oil, and I'm going to need to go to Costco or something to get that amount of oil, because I'm not buying that in the grocery store. I was impressed with the result when it came out. It was clearly like the best way to cook it if you can.
But I liked the field trip, and I liked seeing Andy at Brad's, and Andy being like, oh, apparently he has a nice backyard. First time I've been invited here. Like all of that. I don't know. We talked more about like the process for this video, but just the two of them together, I think was a lot of fun. And like Andy
Totally.
saying like, why do you get the hat? And I feel like Brad's like, well, because I always wear a hat. And then Andy's like, should I take the shirt off? No, God. And like, I think he realized like, oh shit, the producers are going to ask now. And he's like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. It was funny when Brad said that about his hats, because at that point Russ was like, yeah, he's always wearing a hat because he's losing his hair, which made me laugh because that's exactly what Jaslyn from Up in 10 Club said to me when she came over to London and we were talking about Bon Appetit. She was like, I don't get why everyone's so like nutso over Brad. Like, he's clearly just always wears a hat because he's losing his hair. And I was like, shut up!
I don't care. I still have a crush on Brad.
Yeah, I still do too. It
doesn't matter if you lose your hair.
No, exactly. Leave Brad alone, everyone. They got to the point where it was like, okay, it's going to be roasted. And then I was very pleased to see that they went down the route of chopping up the turkey, because cooking a turkey whole, although it looks like what you'd expect to be served at Thanksgiving, that it's not the best way to cook a turkey. It just isn't, because every bit of a turkey cooks differently.
I never would have thought of that. And now I'm like, why the hell have we never done that?
I think I'm going to try doing it in pieces this year for the first time, because exactly like you, I don't have a big enough table for everyone to have their plate around it and me put a turkey in the middle. You know, thanks BA for putting me on that track. So I guess we should switch to cranberry sauce.
First of all, my favorite cranberry sauce, and my brother totally agrees, is what both of them said at the start. They just want it out of the can. They don't need they just want cranberry sauce out of the can. Slice it from the can. Like, that's the only thing we want. I kind of feel like that would just be the simplest way to do it.
Well, they nearly did that at one point, didn't they?
Yeah, they nearly did, because they were just ready to give up. I do feel like cranberry sauce got the short shrift in this. I mean, I know turkey is like the centerpiece or whatever of Thanksgiving, but to be honest, I eat way more cranberry sauce than turkey every year at Thanksgiving.
Wow. Okay. For me, cranberry sauce, I always make it every year. So I don't think we can get it canned. Certainly not in the same way you do in the States.
I do think they were making it too complicated with the molds.
I don't understand the mold business. To me, it just looked like that concept that they had in their head of like putting it in a fancy mold. A, it didn't really work. And B, it just felt really 80s, like really like something out of the 70s and 80s. And I was just like, is this worth it? I don't think it's worth it.
I don't think it's worth it, but it also is very much what people do with cranberry sauce here in the U.S.
Is it?
If they are making it and it's not just straight out of the can, the way that I prefer, it is very much always done in a mold, and what we call like a Jell-O mold. However, the first thing that Brad held up that was like a glass loaf pan.
Yeah.
The cranberry salad, cranberry sauce salad stuff that like my mom makes, that's what she just does it in. So it's real simple, and then you just scoop it out.
Yeah, like, exactly. You don't have to plop it out and it have this amazing pattern on it, you know?
Like, honestly, the pie thing wasn't a bad idea. They could have just stuck with a pie.
Yeah. And not like, turn it out right. Just have people scoop it from the pie.
Yeah, just have people scoop it out. It doesn't have to be flipped over. To me, that sort of thing doesn't matter, especially because if they prefer the canned stuff, then don't make it fancy. Just make it simple.
Yeah, and I feel like it didn't come out of the mold properly any time that they did it. Like, they got better and better at it, but it wasn't like a clean plop out. I did like Andy's little fancy stuff on the top. That was quite cute. But I just felt like they had so much trouble getting out of that mold so that it looked half decent.
Yeah, they were trying to, at that point, do the presentation because they figured out the consistency and the taste. Yeah. And I loved that the sumac ended up staying in, and that even Andy admitted that it was good.
Yeah, and I thought it was so funny when he asked him to go and get it, and he came back. He was like, I brought 2 quarts. I hope that's cool. And Andy's like, yeah, sure, right, whatever. But I think I'm curious to see what happens when we get the final episode of Making Perfect, when they pull it all together, like what the final version is going to be. Yeah. You know?
We are anti-mold.
Anti-mold, pro sumac. Now that we have recapped, I think we need to pick our favourite video from this batch and which one we're most likely to make.
So my favorite was the It's Alive. Brad makes the fermented popcorn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not popcorn, but popcorn topping. Like,
yeah.
It was a short It's Alive, but it was so much fun, and I was laughing the whole time. So that's my favorite video. And then making, I actually kind of want to try making that pesto, because Andy said it wouldn't take that long in a food processor, and I feel like that's something I might be able to handle without having a breakdown. So, yeah. What about you, LJ?
So we had such a great selection to choose from this time. There were so many good videos. I loved a lot of them, but I have to pick the Making Perfect turkey cranberry sauce, just because I've been so excited for the next season of Making Perfect and like been speculating and looking up all the rumors online and trying to figure it out. I'm so pumped that it's Thanksgiving, because I feel like my Thanksgiving kind of menu is due a kind of shake up, so I'm really excited to pick up some tips, and it's just great to see Brad and Andy make turkey, you know, and kind of half-assed make cranberry sauce. So, and I'm really excited for the rest of that series to sort of run through. So, yeah, that's my favorite. And in terms of what I would make, again, there are lots of things to choose from. Like the Nasi Lemak looked amazing. Popcorn, obviously, I adore and would love to have that. I'm definitely going to put into practice some of the tips from the turkey video. But I think I'm going to pick as my, like, ultimate dish that I would make the lobster rolls from the Back to Back Chef, because fucking delicious is all I have to say about that. It looked amazing. All right, we have some shout outs to round out the episode. So lots of you obviously have been listening to us and have been letting us know and joining in our conversations on our various social media channels. We've heard a lot from Mary, our honorary Bon Appétit mum, actual mum to Meg,
Hi,
a quarter of us. She listened to Meg's episode on her making her spicy chicken katsu sandwiches, and said that it's on her recipe to make list. And she also listened to Justine make vegan Snickers and said, "You go, girl," when she heard what a challenge it was going to be. So thank you, Mary, for the encouragement always. We really appreciate it. Alison from the Art History for All podcast was listening to us on her way to the Sound Education Conference 2019. So we hope we kept you company on your travels there, Alison. Thank you for letting us know. And Jaslyn from Up in 10 Club podcast listened to our episode where we talked about Claire's Hot Pockets gourmet makes, and she said she's never had a Hot Pocket either, but she would smash one of Claire's. And she'd also listened to Justine making Snickers and said that she was a size queen making those big boys, which I don't know what Justine wants to say about that. She'll have the right to reply when she's next on an episode. But Preheated podcast and Black Girls Do Stuff Too podcast, they also loved the Snickers episode. So there was a lot of love for Justine's vegan gourmet makes attempts. So well done, Justine. Props. I really enjoyed that episode as well. You've also been getting in touch with us, not just to tell us about ourselves, which obviously we always like to hear, but you've also been telling us about what you've been making. So Elaine from the Anxiety podcast said she saw mega omelettes in her future when we asked what people were making at the weekend. Love an omelette. So I hope those were good, Elaine. And then obviously Mary got in touch as well, and said that she was having fettuccine Alfredo, but she was cheating because it wasn't homemade. But I think that's okay. You can't be expected to make everything, Mary. Like, you make enough.
Clearly Mary is like the ultimate cook, so yeah.
Yeah, you deserve a break.
If it's not from scratch, that's okay.
So thank you everybody for getting in touch with us on social media and sharing what you thought of our episodes. We always appreciate it, and we love seeing it as well. So all that remains this week is for us to share another review. This review this week was from Sunny from the Book of Lies podcast, and she said, "Let me just say thank you to the hostesses of this wonderfully delightful podcast. You have turned me on to Bon Appétit. I love cooking and food shows, and I can listen to these four women talk about food and their own experiences in the kitchen. So if you enjoy any of the above, listen now." Yes, listen now. I think that's, good advice for anyone. Thank you, Sunny.
Thank you, Sunny.
I guess that's it. Do you think we've done a good job, Amanda?
I think so. I think Justine will think we were long-winded, but we love you, Justine. Thank you.
It's the only type of wind I know. Long. So thank you for joining us, long-winded Bon Appetit ladies, this week. Next time on the podcast, we've got a big surprise for you because we've got a bonus Halloween special. So that'll be coming at you before the week is out. So we're very excited and we hope you enjoy it.
Thanks for listening to Bon Appetit, a Bon Appetit fan cast.
We'd love to hear from you, so find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Pinterest at pod_appetit.
And on Facebook at Pod Appetit Podcast.
You can also email us at podappetitpodcast@gmail.com and find all of our episodes on our website, podappetitpodcast.com.
Until next time, the test kitchen is closed.
Hey everyone, we're here to tell you about our podcast, Resolved Mysteries.
We're a podcast that is equal parts friendship, nostalgia, and research on unsolved stories.
Resolved Mysteries podcast follows the 80s and 90s television show Unsolved Mysteries, hosted by Robert Stack, and provides the most recent updates on each segment. We are three friends who have a love for true crime, the unsolved, and justice. The stories we cover range from the very silly to the truly heartbreaking.
We provide in-depth research that will have you laughing, crying, and occasionally outraged.
Resolved Mysteries podcast is available on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite pods. Join us and perhaps you may be able to help solve a mystery.